Justin A.W. Blair here. I'm a writer, I'm a painter. And most recently, I just concluded my reading of Gene Wolfe's piece. You can look at my other videos. There's another video, at least one, on Gene Wolfe, The Wizard Knight. This is a book which I finished last night late, as is my wont. And I thought about immediately recording. And I had to give myself a little time because the book weighed so heavily on me and I didn't know how to parse it. I didn't know what to say about it because it's such a rich book. And that's why this review is going to be odd. There's not going to be any spoilers in the review at all, by the way. Such a rich book that it is difficult to immediately get hold of and then relate a great deal about. He's quite the magician, Gene Wolfe, in terms of a writer. Who is this book for? That's one question we can ask ourselves, and which I can maybe answer by saying, I think this is a book that anyone will enjoy who enjoys literature. Now, why do I say literature instead of genre fiction? You know that I mainly speak on genre fiction on this channel. Gene Wolfe does transcend that, without a doubt. So, if you're a person who feels unsure if genre fiction counts as literature, which I think is a foolish concern, if you find yourself in that situation, this is a wonderful book to read. I don't like long commercials in the middle of a YouTube video, so I'll get to the point quick. My own novel, written by me, Justin A.W. Blair, entitled The Haunt on the Island of Esmer, is out, available on Amazon. You can buy it in ebook or paperback format. It is inspired by Malazan, A Song of Ice and Fire, and The Black Company. Epic novels in that vein. Take a moment, check it out. I read it. The experience of reading something like this, I had this strange image in mind. Gene Wolfe, as I said before, a bit of a magician. There's a magician's trick to lay on a bed of nails. How does that trick work? I don't know. I'm not a magician. My understanding is that the nails are put so close together that it essentially provides a firm foundation so that you're just laying on a flat surface. But that doesn't seem right. That seems like something I just read in some book somewhere. It seems foolish to believe that now that I think about it. Don't try this at home. Don't try laying on a bed of nails at home. But that's what it feels like to read this book, is you're laying on a bed of warmed nails. There's a kind of tingling feeling to it. And there's a sense that something could go wrong, that a meteor could streak across the sky of high metallic content, magnetized, and sweep the nails away, and suddenly we have a situation. That's what it felt like. And that image came to mind right after reading the book, and I thought, no, I'm not going to record because that won't make sense to anyone. Is this a book I recommend to other writers? Yes, I do. However, you must have a strong heart. You must be confident in yourself as a writer to read Gene Wolfe. I actually think that reading Gene Wolfe could destroy some writers who don't have the confidence in themselves as a writer, because he is that good. Truly a master of science fiction, fantasy, and genre, and horror to a degree also, because the question comes about again and again. We turn around, who would I recommend this book to? Well, is it science fiction? Is it fantasy? Is it horror? It's unclear. It's perhaps science fiction. It is perhaps a horror story. It is, in a sense, the memoir of a man who lived in a Midwestern town in the middle of the 20th century. It really is more of a horror story, though, than a science fiction story. The science fiction explanation is a possibility. And this book is a lot of possibilities. I don't know the answer to exactly what happens in this book. The entirety of it remains a mystery after its first reading, which is again why I think I'm going to recommend this book without any caveats at all, except to say again, if you are a writer and you have fear in your writer's heart still, be careful what you digest. I think there would have been a point in my life if I read this, I would have simply said, well, I give up. I can't, I'll never be able to do something this good. Had a feeling like that from reading some Vladimir Nabokov in the past. It's like a close thing. You know, you read it and you're like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to ever even get close to matching some of these passages. I'm not going to talk about the plot for a variety of reasons. First, because I'm not sure I could entirely. I mean, I could rehash a kind of Wikipedia page on the book or something like that. That would be foolish, and who cares? When I explain it to you like this, though, it's going to sound annoying, and some of you are going to be like, no, I don't want to read this. But it's kind of a kaleidoscope of images and symbols. And the symbols rise up through the text and then submerge again. And then when they come back, the book is so dense, not necessarily with symbols, it's so dense in the tones and types of movements that occur in the prose that you're surprised again when the symbol reemerges. Some of the central images and symbols that I'll mention here, and probably, I think perhaps the most important one, is the symbol of an orange. The orange comes up a lot, or several times anyway. And again, I'm not going to try to give you the full plot, but I will give you a basic framework of what the book is about. As I said before, it's a memoir of a man, or perhaps an amalgamation of souls from the mid-20th century, a man who has lived in a small town, and his ancestors have lived in this small town since it was settled. I'm not sure where it's supposed to be. It could be Ohio. It could be Missouri. It could be any other state in the Midwest. I would say probably a state somewhere east of the Mississippi River, for a variety of reasons, one of which is that one of the characters makes a foray into what is obviously Florida on the Gulf Coast, and I'll speak to that in a moment too. Well, you can see I'm struggling to try to get a firm grasp on any thread to explain this book to you. But it is a memoir of a man in a Midwestern town, mid-20th century, or men, or the souls of men that are amalgamated, perhaps in the present, in a kind of constant present. It doesn't really matter what year it is. Perhaps far into the future. That's one way of looking at it. It's one way of reading it. And that is definitely one way of understanding it. It's also a murder mystery in some ways too. There are several murders that occur. There are different explanations given for some of them. There are no explanations given for others. There are unreliable accounts for the reasons of certain people's either murders, deaths, or disappearances. It is the story of a woman, the aunt of Mr. Weir, W-E-I-R, she is also a central character to this, in the sense that the narrator recounts 3 of her suitors. And then all of those stories and all those characters are interwoven into later parts of the book. But not just later parts previous in terms of the temporal aspect of the narrative, and then you don't realize it until later on. A note about this Midwestern setting. It's something that occurs to me. I think Ray Bradbury had this, and I think it has to do with growing up. I think he was from Illinois, if I recall. I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments. You don't see these types of guys much anymore. You know, there is the small town, Midwestern town, but you're always right on the cusp of the countryside with this book in particular, and with some other science fiction genre writers. I think we're going to be missing out on that in the future, because I think that I can't think of any genre writer that really has that same experience, because I'm not sure that experience is really readily available to most people anymore. Growing up in a small town where the countryside is right there, and it's still kind of a wild thing. Now I think so many people live in suburbs, or they live completely in the country, or they live in an urban area. Maybe it's just me and my paucity of reading, and I haven't seen these books, but there is something very 1950s about this setting, because it's a time that it's an edge time. These people can still remember the late 19th century. Their parents, their grandparents lived in a very different world than we live in. I understand this a little bit because I come from kind of an area like this. Not exactly. I was a little bit more in the boondocks, so to speak, but I get it. I understand it. And there's something also that feels very American and a very 20th century American literature to me. It has a Sherwood Anderson feel. It has Winesburg, Ohio vibes, is what I would say about Gene Wolfe's piece. For me to sit here and talk about all the different mysteries and symbols of this book would do us no good, because it really is something you need to experience for yourself. I also made some notes about particular passages that display some extraordinarily advanced writing techniques, and I thought about reading those through and delving into them to illustrate them to you if you're a writer, and also just to think through them myself. But this is a book that needs to be experienced from text straight into your little eyes. It can't, yes, I could read it out loud, but there's something about it, especially if you're wanting to get something as a writer from it, you have to read it. For you to listen to me rehearse these things, I think does us no good. So I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip that and simply say that this one hit pretty hard for me. It did. I really, really enjoyed this. There were parts of it that this is the type of book that maybe I'll read again in my life. Maybe I'll go back to this and read it. I'm not sure. In a way, I hope I don't, but I'm not sure. It's a book that clings to you, not in a bad way, but it stays around. It really does get into you, into your nervous system a little bit, I think, a book like this. It's very easy to read. I was entranced by it. It was not a book that I put down. It was never a book where I felt like I was having to push myself forward. That being said, it's not exactly a clean read, a super easy thing to read, but it's not difficult at all. And that in and of itself, to have that style as a writer in its totality, to create a work like that presses you forward when it shouldn't be, because structurally it's so odd, is in and of itself just a accomplishment beyond understanding unless you read the book. My praise is effusive. I am very pleased that I happened to just find this randomly in a thrift store. And I'm going to keep on reading Gene Wolfe. I feel like he is a writer. I have another book on my nightstand right now. I feel like he is a writer, though I almost have to pace, that he is such a heavy drug that I have to be careful how much I take at once. Part of me wants to just grab all the Gene Wolfe I can and read it, but I'm not sure that's wise. And maybe as I've grown a little older, I have slightly more wisdom, but I doubt it. So look out for the next video. Gene Wolfe's piece. Highly recommended. We'll see you next time.